Saitama's new rank is revealed in chapter 187 of One Punch Man, and it comes in the most unexpected way possible. Unexpected is honestly the word of the day with 187 because this chapter is actually a manga exclusive edition, meaning it's brand new to everyone including webcomic readers. Surprisingly, this chapter takes on a more serious tone than we're used to at certain points, but also some of the most funny moments that we've gotten recently. And to put the cherry on top, we get a truly awesome Moomin Rider moment in here too. Literally all the key components to a great chapter are in this one, so I'm very excited to get into it. But first, today's video is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. Now I'm sure you've already heard of the game by now, but with all the awesome new content that's been added in the past year, now is definitely the best time to join, and you can do so by clicking my link in the description below or scanning the QR code you see on your screen right now. Well, to help get us up to speed, I brought in none other than Professor Death Knight.
Professor Death Knight here from Teleria University. Okay class, any questions?
I have a question. Besides Ultimate Death Knight, who is your favorite new champion?
Alright, if I can't say Ultimate Death Knight, then I gotta say Ultimate Death Knight. He's my #1 boy. I'm not supposed to have favorites, but I do.
Okay, last question I have to ask. Have you met any of the new champions being added from the new limited series Raid Call of the Arbiter, like Artek the Mighty Orc Warlord?
Yeah, I mean, those guys are cool, I guess. That's it for today, class.
Thank you, Professor Death Knight. Well, as I mentioned earlier, Raid Call of the Arbiter is in full swing now, so to celebrate this epic new limited series, Raid's added some of the new characters from the series as champions that you can literally play in the game. The first one being added is the aforementioned Artek, a Mighty Orc Warlord, and what's really cool about him is that he's going to be available to everybody for free, and literally all you have to do is just log in a raid for 7 days between now and July 24th. If you haven't started playing yet, this is the perfect time to do so, and to spice things up even more for you, new players can use my link in the description below or scan the QR code right here and get a free starter pack with some sick in-game loot right here. Once you're in and crushing your enemies, come and find me under the name Anime Anxiety, join my clan, and we'll be legends together. So just hit my link in the description and I'll see you on the battlefield. We kick off the chapter with a very interesting quote that reads, "Failure begins when you aspire to be someone who is nothing like you." And to be quite honest, this kind of tugged at the heartstrings for me a bit, and I'm sure it did for some of you, because I for one am someone that has failed many times because I've tried to go out of my comfort zone and tried doing something new or bettered myself in a different way just to fall flat on my face, and it kind of makes you think, wow, maybe I should have just stayed where I was and not exposed myself to potentially failing and embarrassing myself, right? So yeah, it kind of hit me on a personal level. But moving on, we open with a hero named Papillion 800 receiving a call from McCoy, noting that he has some kind of bet on him, and right after this, he activates an opening to a truck sitting in the middle of a road. It turns out there's this frail chihuahua monster inside of it too. So you might be a little confused so far as to what's going on, but this actually gets cleared up in the next sequence, where it seems like several rich people are hanging out in a dining room watching the monster via a drone. And this is when it's revealed that this is actually a pre-planned event orchestrated by the Hero Association, where rich people place their bets on battles between heroes and monsters. Not only that, the Hero Association executives go as far as to mislabel monsters as stronger than they really are and disguise heroes in different costumes in order to kick them down a class and make them look weaker. This way they can heavily control the outcome of the battle, which is inside information that only the most wealthy sponsors of the association have access to, essentially rigging monster encounters so the richest sponsors can profit off of it. Now I know the Hero Association has been shown on different occasions to do some low-key shady stuff, but this is by far the most sinister aspect of them that we've seen so far, at least in my opinion, especially when you consider how wrong this particular fight goes. Well, it turns out that the C-class hero Papillion is actually B-class hero Mad Devil Yankee, while the so-called demon chihuahua monster is actually a threat level wolf, or at least they think it is. Considering that, Mad Devil Yankee comes in fearlessly with a punch assuming he'll take it out easily, but to his surprise the monster straight up nails him in the face and makes him briefly pass out. This is when Yankee has a flashback to the day this whole thing was set up. He was apparently completely against the idea of participating in this whole thing and immediately refused to do so. This is when McCoy pulls out Yankee's file and lays out his backstory as a former delinquent who was inspired by Moomin Rider to become a hero. He also points out that he has a sick mother at the Hero Hospital and it would be a shame if she couldn't get an important surgery she has coming up, essentially threatening to stop his mother's important treatment in order to make him participate in this whole thing. Now, I didn't like McCoy before, but this threat he makes to Yankee makes him honestly pretty damn despicable. Like, straight up screw this guy. Well, Yankee finally comes to and realizes that this monster was actually way stronger than it was said to be, so he actually tries phoning in for backup this time, not actually playing it up for the cameras like he really needs help, but McCoy still thinks he's acting here. It turns out that the reason this monster was so strong is because of all the experiments that were done to it at the Hero Association headquarters, which explains some of the reason why there's so many of them at the base during Tatsumaki and Saitama's fight. These are potentially also monsters that are being used for these rigged fights. Well, although he's straight up getting manhandled, Yankee refuses to back down as he thinks back to the day that Moomin Rider came face to face with Deep Sea King way back in season 1 of the anime. He was actually someone in the crowd that day cheering him on, and this was the moment he realized he wanted to be a hero just like him. It's honestly awesome to see how much a weak guy like Moomin Rider can inspire average people to just completely turn their life around, despite Moomin losing pretty much every battle he has. I mean, I know when I watched that episode I got inspired, so I definitely feel for him here. Trying to follow in his footsteps, Yankee essentially decides to give his life fighting this monster, and as he and the monster wind up to clash one more time, our boy Saitama interjects and one-shots the shit out of the monster. Absolutely love when Saitama makes these kinds of entrances, especially since Yankee was like straight up about to die here. Yankee passes out and all the rich people watching are shocked and pissed at what just happened, since they likely had bet on the monster, which is a pretty messed up thing in its own right. But you know, angry rich sponsors means an angry McCoy. So he makes it onto the scene and yells at Saitama and Genos for interfering. This is when Child Emperor pops out and asks McCoy if he's mad because Saitama showed up to ruin one of their rigged fights. So this is kind of implying that this is one of the super shady things that the Hero Association has been doing that Child Emperor uncovered a few chapters back. It seems like he's been low-key on this mission to uncover all these secret things that the Hero Association's been doing and kind of building a case against them. Well, to avoid further questioning, McCoy's like, whatever, Papillion 800 weakened the monster, so he gets most of the credit anyway. I'm getting out of here. And it's kind of weird that he says specifically that Saitama isn't getting much of the credit here, considering what happens next, because Child Emperor then explains to Saitama and Genos what he was referring to by these rigged fights and shows both of them this app on a phone where they have a secret website. This is where they place odds for every hero, meaning like stronger heroes are obviously most likely to win their fights, so they aren't really a risky bet. So heroes that are seen to be much weaker and the least likely to win their fights have a higher multiplier since they're riskier bets. And the reason I explain this is because Saitama takes the phone and sees his own odds, noting that he has a multiplier of 20. And if you look right above him, it looks like Stinger has a multiplier of 1.1, meaning in the Hero Association's eyes, Stinger is 20 times more likely to win a fight than Saitama is. So this totally pisses Saitama off as he says, they're treating me like complete trash. But the one thing that he's missing here, and I think the most important thing out of this whole chapter, is the fact that they low-key changed his hero ranking to A rank 29, jumping a whole 10 spots just from that one encounter, which is why I said I thought it was super weird that McCoy said that Saitama wasn't going to be getting much of the credit for this one. So it kind of makes you wonder why exactly they did this. So yeah, the Hero Association thinks he's super weak, but hey, he jumped up 10 spots in the hero rankings. That's a win to me. I don't know about you, but we then cut back to Papillion 800, who off screen was taken away by Moomin Rider to the hospital, and on their way there he comes to. This is when Moomin Rider says, I was watching the broadcast, you sure are strong. And Papillion's kind of thinking to himself like, no, you have it all wrong. This was all a setup and I feel so ashamed for being a part of this. Because you gotta remember that Moomin Rider was his idol and the reason he decided to become a hero in the first place. But Moomin Rider, being the absolute ultimate Chad that he is, says to Yankee, the level didn't matter. You stood up against something stronger than you without hesitating for a moment. That's amazing. And this makes him cry just like it almost made me cry, man. Moomin Rider's such a pure guy. He's so good-hearted. Always love it when he pops up in the manga because he always has some either super inspiring lines or super inspiring actions. Well, later on that day, it seems like Saitama's really taking that times 20 multiplier to heart. Like, it's not even letting him sleep, which is pretty hilarious. Well, the next day, Genos brings up an interesting point. He says, what would happen if you bet on yourself and then defeated the monster? And then this is when the wheels start turning in Saitama's head, because he then says, hypothetically, if we wanted to stop this stupid hero gambling, I was thinking the best way to do that might be to make the house lose a ton of money. And he's kind of sweating a little bit, and Genos says, if the house loses a lot of money, wouldn't they try to expand their footprint to get it back? And then Saitama starts giggling nodding nervously saying, yeah, you're probably right. So you can kind of put together that Saitama's low-key kind of thinking of this as like a way for him to make a ton of money from defeating monsters by kind of rigging the system. And the moment he sees some odds pop up on the phone, meaning there's a monster around, him and Geno straight up spring into action super fast to get to the monster. And what literally made me laugh out loud when I first read this chapter is as they're running, you can see Saitama just staring right at his phone with his hand like quivering because he knows that he's straight up just like rigging the system here in order to make a ton of money. But unfortunately for him, in that moment, this dude in like an F1 sports car steals a woman's purse. And then Saitama's just standing there kind of looking back and forth, deciding which danger to go to, whether to go to the monster and make a bunch of money or just simply do the right thing and help that woman get her purse back. Well, we know our boy Saitama's a good guy, so obviously he chooses to get the purse, and the woman thanks him, of course, and Genos notes that Tatsumaki actually took the monster out while they were doing this, and Saitama's like crying saying, oh yeah, I'm so happy about that, low-key dying inside, and the crowd behind him thinks that he's crying out of joy for saving the woman's purse, and they're like, oh my god, such a nice guy, what a good person. But obviously Saitama's just super bummed that he missed on this opportunity, and he starts thinking to himself, am I actually pretty depressed? Was I really just doing this for money? Man, that was close. Gambling is scary. And surprisingly, the woman with the purse actually offers this massive diamond ring to Saitama, but of course, him being the ideal hero that he is, he hesitates for a bit, but he actually inevitably rejects it. So in his eyes, it's still not about the money. Bravo, Saitama. This was an absolute banger of a chapter. I was not expecting to get all this new content, but what do you guys think about this one? Let me know what you thought about this chapter in the comments below. Let me know if you enjoyed this change of pace and this new addition to the manga's continuity, or if you thought it was a waste of time. Either opinion's valid, let me know below. Also, make sure to subscribe and turn those notifications on because I cover One Punch Man chapters as soon as they come out. So if you got those notifications on, you'll probably be the first person to know as soon as the chapter is released. So that being said, have an absolutely wonderful night or morning, whatever, and I'll see you guys in the next one.